What is good and welcome to Chatwin Reacts. I'm Jack, your British go. Today we're going to be reacting to the worst choke jobs in NBA history. Top of my mind, I cannot think of any. Maybe Dallas a year or two ago, maybe. I don't know. Let me know what you think. Of course, might be appearing in this video down in the comments, and of course, way down there, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, of course, put a go in the go chain. Let's go.
Being so close to victory and still losing is one of the most devastating feelings in the world.
Way off, and another miss.
Oh my God, this was hilarious.
These are the biggest choke jobs
actually,
in NBA
the
history.
Magic.
Starting with arguably
the
most dominant player
seconds.
ever. Wilt Chamberlain played against Bill Russell's Celtics 8 times in the playoffs and lost 7 times. 4 of those series went to the deciding Game 7, with Russell winning all 4. But the total point differential was just 9 points in all Game 7s combined. While Wilt was celebrated as the most dominant player ever, all those losses to Russell tarnished his legacy as a winner, especially because some of the losses were straight-up choke jobs. The most famous example is 1969, when the Lakers, with Jerry West, Elgin Baylor, and Wilt, had a 3-2 lead in the series against an aging Bill Russell. And even after the Celtics won Game 6 at home, the Lakers were still convinced they would win. So they filled up the Los Angeles Forum with thousands of balloons, planning to drop them on the floor after the Lakers won the championship. Of course, the balloons stayed tied up to the roof because the Celtics won the title.
You can't do that.
But it's going to be fun to watch them get those balloons out one at a time.
Largely due to the Lakers coach refusing to put Wilt back in the game in crunch time. However, the 1969 balloon fiasco wasn't Wilt's worst loss to Russell. A year earlier, while he was still with the Philadelphia 76ers, Wilt had a 3-1 series lead against the Celtics in the Eastern Conference Finals. The Sixers were the defending champs, and they had Boston on the ropes once again, but then completely fell apart. As a team, they shot just 36% in Game 5. Ooh. And in Game 6, Wilt had a horrible game, shooting 6 for 21 from the field and a catastrophic 8 for 22 from the free throw line. I saw
somewhere someone said that 100-point game he had isn't actually recorded anywhere. Not saying it's fake, but
And then, in Game 7, with home court advantage, Wilt played even worse. He took just 9 shots, missed more than half his free throws, and finished the game with just 14 points, in what was probably his worst playoff game ever. It was also the first time in NBA history a team had blown a 3-1 lead. 2 years later, Wilt and the Lakers would come back from a 3-1 deficit against the Suns. And in 1979, the Bullets defeated the Spurs after trailing 3-1 in the series. And the fourth time it happened was in 1981, in one of the closest playoff series of all time. It was the Eastern Conference Finals between the Celtics and the 76ers. And behind the great play of Julius Erving, Philly had a 3-1 lead in the series. And Game 5 offered much of the same, as the Sixers held a double-digit lead at the half, with all evidence pointing to them winning the series. But thanks to Larry Bird, the Celtics flipped the script and won Game 5. And then in Game 6 at home,
still
the
one of my
Sixers
favorite
opened
videos
up
I've ever
another
done with
huge
some Larry
gap,
Bird
leading by
mixtape.
13 points after the first quarter, only
was.
to lose that game too. Finally, in Game 7, the Sixers had a 4-point lead coming into the fourth quarter, but they broke down once again, and the Celtics would advance to the finals, where Larry Bird would win his first NBA title.
The best games I ever played in my life. It was 7-game series, and every one of them was just full of excitement.
In the final 3 games of the Eastern Finals, the Celtics outscored the Sixers by a combined 5 points, with each game decided in the final seconds. And that series is eerily similar to the meltdown of the LA Clippers, who squandered a 3-1 lead to the Nuggets in the 2020 NBA bubble. Denver made it out of the first round by overcoming a 3-1 deficit to the Utah Jazz. And in the second round against the Clippers, the Nuggets were on the brink of elimination again.
To beat that team, we got to get more players involved. We got to move the ball a little bit better. We can't be predictable against that team.
With Kawhi Leonard, widely considered the best player in the world at the time, Paul George, who was another All-NBA talent, and a deep roster of serviceable role players, it seemed like the Clippers had the series in the bag, especially after holding a 12-point lead at the half of Game 5. Heading into the fourth, Denver cut the deficit to 7. But still, the Clippers were in the driver's seat, and nobody could predict what would happen next. LA went ice cold, making just 7 of their 25 shots in the fourth quarter, while the Nuggets shot 60% from the field, making 7 of their 9 3-point attempts. But these things happen. A team gets hot late, you miss a couple of easy baskets, and you lose a game. Still, nobody considered this a big deal, and the Clippers were still the heavy favorites. And after the first half of Game 6, the Clippers played according to expectations, with a 16-point advantage in the first half. And then another meltdown, and this time an even bigger
the Clippers,
one.
we would refer to them over here as bottle jobs. Yeah, that's kind of our phrase for it. Like, you're a bottle job. So Tottenham Hotspur, the soccer team over here, we call them bottle jobs because they always get so far and then they always screw up. You would call it, yeah, choke jobs, bottle jobs, same thing.
Second half, the Nuggets outscored the Clippers 64-35, and LA looked drained, disengaged, and completely helpless in stopping the Nuggets' avalanche.
We kept getting to the paint, passing the ball, got a little stagnant, and just couldn't make shots.
But there was still Game 7, and the Clippers once again had the lead after the first half. However, in the second half, the same story repeated. Another Clippers collapse, with Kawhi and Paul George making just 2 out of 18 shots from the field, looking like shells of themselves. Paul George, who once called himself Playoff P, got the nickname Way Off P and Pandemic P. But while this was the first time for PG-13 to blow a 3-1 lead in the playoffs, for his coach, Doc Rivers, it was actually the third time. The first time it happened was in 2003, when Doc was coaching the Orlando Magic. After their third win in Game 4, Magic superstar Tracy McGrady naively proclaimed that it feels really good to win a playoff series and advance to the second round. And their opponents, the mighty Detroit Pistons, didn't like that one bit. Game 5 was a blowout, as the Pistons held Orlando to just 67 points. In Game 6, McGrady scored 37, but he had no help, and Detroit forced a Game 7, where they would finish the job with another big win. McGrady had to eat his words and paid the price for his cockiness. However, he indeed lost to a better team, and it was a big surprise that Orlando even won 3 games, considering they were the 8th seed and the Pistons were the 1st seed. But in 2015, another Doc Rivers team choked in the playoffs, and this time they weren't any less talented. They just dropped the ball big time. It was the infamous Lob City Clippers, who had a 3-1 lead against James Harden and the Houston.
A decent team though, right? Not Harden. That's fucking confusing me because they're playing in Houston. Chris Paul, Blake Griffin, DeAndre Jordan. I can't remember anyone else.
Houston Rockets. After LA won Game 3 by 25 and Game 4 by 33 points, everybody expected another big win and that the Clippers would advance to their first conference finals in franchise history. But it didn't happen in Game 5, as the Rockets led the entire game and cruised to victory. However, in Game 6 in Los Angeles, the Clippers led by 19 late in the third and were up by 12 with 8 minutes to go. So their victory seemed like a no-brainer. And then, it's hard to even explain the debacle that happened. With James Harden on the bench, the Rockets outscored the Clippers 40-15 in the fourth quarter, led by a combined 29 points from Corey Brewer and Josh Smith, 2 players off the bench. The Clippers never recovered from the fiasco in Game 6, losing the series in Game 7, which marked the beginning of the end of the Lob City era. However, this wasn't the biggest meltdown of Chris Paul's career. 7 years later, he got served the most humiliating loss of his career, with the compliments of chef Luka Doncic. After he led Phoenix to the 2021 Finals, the Suns were even hotter in 2022, winning a franchise record 64 games, with Monty Williams winning Coach of the Year. In the second round against the Mavericks, it was an even series, each team winning 3 games at home and doing so in a dominant fashion. The Suns won their games with an average 19-point margin of victory, while Dallas won their home games with a 15-point cushion. But Game 7 was in Phoenix, and everybody expected the home team to win again. And not only did they not win, they got destroyed. In the first half, Dallas had a 30-point lead, with Luka scoring the same amount of points as the entire Phoenix team. However, there have been 10 instances in NBA history where a team overcame a 30-point deficit, and there was still a glimmer of hope for the Suns fans. But it went from bad to ugly real quick, and at one point the Mavs had a 46-point lead, ultimately winning 123-90 in what was the most lopsided Game 7 in NBA history. That wasn't the Suns' first choke job, though. That happened in 1995, with Charles Barkley still in his prime, when the Suns had nearly defeated his friend Kenny Smith and the Rockets. But just like Kenny is often reminded on Inside the NBA, you have to run through the tape, and it ain't over until it's over. Phoenix finished the regular season with 59 wins, securing the 2nd seed in the West. And after they swept the Blazers, it looked like it was their time to win the West again, after they took a commanding 3-1 lead against the Rockets in the second round. But in Game 5, Charles Barkley had lost it. Whatever was going for him in the first half disappeared in the second, as he made 7 of his first 9 shots and then missed 11 in a row, plus a horrible 1 for 6 from the free throw line. missed free throws in the clutch cost Phoenix the game. And after they lost Game 6 in Houston, they returned home for Game 7. And it started off well. The Suns opened up a nice 13-point gap after 12 minutes. And by the end of the half, they were still up by 10. But once again, they squandered the lead. And the game was ultimately decided by a kiss of death, a series-winning dagger by Mario Elie, who blew a couple of kisses towards the Suns fans to rub it in. The Rockets would advance to the NBA Finals, where one player choked even worse than Charles Barkley. It was Nick Anderson, who famously bricked 4 consecutive free throws that would have secured a win.
I only know that because literally the video I just did.
Orlando would win, but he didn't.
As in,
and
like,
after, Kenny Smith tied the game with a buzzer-beating three-pointer.
Because we did a video on Shaq.
He's tied the game.
Houston won in overtime. After this game, the Magic fell apart, never recovering their confidence, and they got swept in the finals. But Nick Anderson hardly had the worst choke in the NBA Finals. Just ask Dennis Johnson or John Starks, who cost their teams NBA titles. In the 1978 Finals between Washington and Seattle, Dennis Johnson entered Game 7 as the best scorer on the Supersonics, averaging 19 points per game. But then, in Game 7, Johnson had the worst shooting performance in NBA Finals history, missing all of his 14 shots and finishing with more turnovers than assists, as the Sonics lost the game by 6 points. Almost identically to Johnson, John Starks entered Game 7 of the 1994 Finals as the best scorer on the Knicks, averaging 19 points per game. But in the deciding game, Starks shot an abysmal 2 for 18, including 0 for 11 from 3, and the Knicks lost the game by 6 points. However, the most criticized Finals choke ever wasn't Nick Anderson, or Dennis Johnson, or John Starks. It happened arguably to the most scrutinized player in NBA history, LeBron James. In the 2011 Finals against the Mavs, LeBron played by far the worst playoff series of his career. In the 54 series he's played so far, he never averaged less than 22 points per game in a series, except for that one time where he averaged 17.8 points against the Mavs and was only the 5th best scorer in the finals.
This was the equivalent to me of an NBA panic attack, going blind under the pressure.
Now, to be fair to the Mavs, they guarded the Heat perfectly, exploiting Miami's lack of shooting and playing a hybrid zone to take away LeBron's driving game. The Mavs also slowed down Kobe and Durant during their championship run, but that doesn't mask the fact that LeBron played horribly. Reluctant to take shots in the fourth quarter, looking uncomfortable with the ball, this was the worst version of LeBron we've ever seen. And haters like Skip Bayless had the right to call his performance a choke job. But this was the only time that could be said about LeBron, because most of the other times, he was the one celebrating while the other team was getting criticized for choking. And nobody choked harder than the Toronto Raptors, who famously got nicknamed LeBronto after 2018. See, the Raptors lost to LeBron in the playoffs in 2016 and 2017, but 2018 was supposed to be their year. They won a franchise record 59 games and had the best record in the East, and the Cavs were weaker than before, playing without Kyrie and going through a big mess at the trade deadline. The Raptors had a deeper team, they had more rest, and most importantly, the home court advantage. And for the majority of Game 1, the Raptors were a better opponent, but they managed to squander a double-digit lead in the fourth quarter. Toronto never trailed once for 48 minutes, but LeBron's clutch turnaround jumper in the last minute tied the score and sent the game to overtime. In the OT, the Raptors seemed to do everything in their power to lose the game. Their players choked and kept missing wide-open shots, so the Cavs escaped with a victory. Game 2 was close at the half, but quickly turned into a blowout. LeBron dominated in a 128-110 victory, finishing with 43 points and 14 assists. Before the fourth quarter, the Raptors announcer joked and said,
"We'll be back to LeBronto for the fourth quarter after this."
In Game 3, the Raptors were close to victory again, but this time LeBron hit this insane running floater for the win, which snatched the Raptors' soul, and Game 4 then became just a formality. The Raptors choked again, after which they traded DeRozan and fired Dwayne Casey a week after he was named Coach of the Year. But in 2000, one team suffered an even bigger meltdown in the conference finals. That year, the Portland Trail Blazers had arguably the deepest and most talented team in the NBA. They won 59 games and had the second best record in the league. And in the West Finals, they played against the team with the best record, the LA Lakers, with MVP Shaq. But unlike most other teams at the time, the Blazers had the front line to battle with Shaq, with equally enormous Arvydas Sabonis and all-star power forward Rasheed Wallace. The Blazers came back from a 3-1 deficit to tie the series and force a Game 7. And in the deciding game, they dominated. Through the first 3 quarters, Portland limited LA to just 58 points, and they had a 15-point lead with 11 minutes to go. And then, suddenly, the Lakers started hitting, while the Blazers couldn't buy a bucket. Seemingly every shot they took rimmed out, and Portland missed 13 consecutive shots, which allowed the Lakers to make a complete comeback, and then seal the victory with arguably the most famous alley-oop in NBA history.
It's beautiful.
Bryant, the shot!
And while we're talking about fourth quarter collapses, we also have to mention the 2018 Rockets, who were so close to knocking out the Golden State Warriors, who many considered the best team of all time. The Rockets had a 3-2 lead, but then they lost Chris Paul due to a hamstring injury, and it seemed like their chance was gone. But in Game 7...
My favourite game, actually, at the moment, doing these NBA kind of compilation videos, is I like to play the game Spot Chris Paul. Because no matter what compilation I watch, he's in 3 or 4 different jerseys. Like, is there any other players that move around?
The Rockets held an 11-point lead at the half. Hope was still alive. Then, just like the 2000 Blazers, they choked and kept
I can think of like Harden
shots. The Rockets
Rockets,
set an NBA
Nets,
record for 27
Clippers,
missed three-pointers in a row, which lost them the game
Westbrook,
and the series. And last, but definitely not least, we have the most famous 3-1 comeback in NBA history. Of course, we're talking about the 2016 Finals, where the Warriors dominated for the first 4 games, after which Klay had the urge to poke the bear.
I mean, trash talk is it's a part of the game in basketball. I feel it's part of any sport, especially this competitive. I guess his feelings just got hurt.
After those comments, and maybe more importantly, Draymond Green's suspension, the Cavs won Game 5 on the road, thanks to otherworldly 41-point performances from LeBron and Kyrie. In Game 6, Draymond was back, but Bogut got injured, and another 41-point game from LeBron forced a Game 7, which birthed 3 of the greatest plays in Cavalier history. The block,
oh, wow.
Blocked by James.
Wow.
The shot,
Irving puts it up. It's good. Kyrie Irving from downtown.
and the stop.
With Curry catches one dribble, steps back, puts up a 3. Won't go. Final seconds. It's over. It's over.
And the city of Cleveland could finally celebrate a championship. And to celebrate watching until the end, feel free to subscribe and watch some more Nonstop.
I have. I think Nonstop makes some of the best videos here on YouTube. I enjoy watching their content a lot. Now, let me know what you think about down below. Is there anything that wasn't included that should be included down there? What's your take on the worst choke job, or as I would call it, a bottle job? Let me know what you think down in the comments, and of course, while you're down there, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, go in the go chain. Post.